All right, y'all. Oh, there we go. All right, y'all. So, Proverbs chapter 5. What does Proverbs chapter 5 mean? Advice in Proverbs often comes in the form of warnings. Those are especially aimed at what happens when a person gives into sin in general, listing the risks associated with ignoring godly wisdom. This section of Proverbs focuses narrowly on the sin of adultery. While the language here evokes a woman tempting a married man, the principles are not meant to be applied to males alone. The concept of sexual purity applies equally to both sexes and to all persons. This chapter begins with a typical plea for the reader or listener to pay close attention. This book uses the term wisdom to mean an ability to apply godly knowledge. Discretion is closely related to that idea. This implies that someone can discern between different things. We see the same idea related in English terms such as discreet, discriminate, and discernment. The advice given here is vital, and Solomon is eager to see it followed. Proverbs 5 1 and through 2. Early verses personified wisdom as a woman crying out in the streets. Proverbs 1 20 through 21. Here, in a contrasting mood, temptation to adultery is symbolized by the idea of a temptress. It's noteworthy that Solomon does not use physical description here. The temptations are all verbal or emotional. That speaks to how this concept applies to both men and women, though history has demonstrated that men are more susceptible to sexual temptation. That word almost got me. This forbidden woman promises something smooth and sweet, but the end results are sour and harmful. Proverbs 5 3 through 6. A key aspect of avoiding sin is to avoid temptation. This is why Solomon strongly suggests staying far away from those who tempt us towards adultery. Avoiding situations where we're liable to be overcome is sound advice. As part of that warning, this passage also describes the consequences of adultery. Those include a loss of reputation, shortened life, possible legal trouble, and reduced prosperity. Worse, adultery leads to a deep regret, looking back with sorrow or sinful choices. There is a reason why, even in modern culture, drenched in promiscuity, there is still a deep stigma against those labeled as marital cheaters. Proverbs 5 7 through 14. All right, sorry about that. Beyond the consequences of adultery are the joys of a faithful marriage. One of the great pleasures of monogamy is the ability to enjoy sexual intimacy without guilt, shame, or fear. Solomon compares this to drinking water from one's own well, a safe, legitimate, worthy source. The alternative, the, alter, the alternative would be seeking water in places like unguarded springs or puddles in the road. There is nothing adulterous relationship. There is nothing in adulterous relationship can offer which God has not provided for in a legitimate way within a properly functioning marriage. Proverbs 5:15 through 20. Summarizing this section is a reminder that God knows and sees all things. He knows and he sees all things. A common threat in adultery is secrecy, but that's not possible in the eyes of an omniscient creator. A common thread is regret over consequences. Once adultery has been committed, it cannot be undone. God can and will forgive those who seek Him, but forgiveness does not change the past. The damage to relationships, reputation, and bodily health are real, and those who ignore godly advice are liable to find this out the hard way. And boy, is that not the truth. Proverbs 5 and 21 through 23. So, the chapter context. This chapter continues the wise sayings Solomon addresses to his children or students. Solomon warns about the temptation to succumb to adultery. He points out the calamities of yielding to sexual sin and of violating one's marriage. This warning is similar to the one given in Proverbs 1 8 through 10. After cautioning about the risk of adultery, he cites the joys and advantages of monogamous marriage. That's good. So good. Okay, so my breakdown part 2. Proverbs 5 focuses on the dangers of sexual immorality, particularly adultery, and contrasts it with the blessings of marital fidelity. The chapter warns against the seductive allure of a strange woman, often interpreted as another man's wife, and highlights the destruction and consequences of such actions, including ruin, shame, and loss of vitality. Conversely, it emphasizes the joy and blessing found in a faithful marriage and encourages men to be satisfied with their own wives. So, key things in interpretations. Warning against adultery. This chapter begins with a strong warning against the deceptive nature of adultery, emphasizing that while it may appear enticing, it ultimately leads to ruin and regret. The strange woman. The strange woman is often understood as a reference to another man's wife, highlighting the dangers of infidelity and temptation to seek pleasure outside of marriage. Consequences of immortality or immorality. Definitely immorality. Proverbs 5 details the negative consequences of sexual immorality, including personal ruin, loss of reputation, and a wasted life. That's deep. Contrast with marital fidelity. The chapter contrasts the destruction path of adultery with the blessing of a faithful marriage, encouraging men to find joy and satisfaction in their own wives. Period. Divine observation. This chapter also reminds the reader that God is aware of all actions and that sin will not go unnoticed. Importance of self-discipline. This chapter underscores the importance of of self-control and wisdom in navigating sexual temptations. That's good. Enjoying one's own wife. Proverb 5 encourages men to appreciate and be satisfied with their wives, emphasizing the blessings of marital intimacy and companionship. And then last is the importance of instruction. The chapter emphasizes the value of heeding wisdom and understanding, particularly in matters of sexual conduct. All right, now, seems like Proverbs is getting down to the nitty gritty with this wisdom. We finna learn some things or seven up in this book of Proverbs. Well, y'all, that's all I have for the book of Proverbs, chapter 5. I will see you guys tomorrow for chapter 6. Bye.